How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
You're listening to Dr. Emma and me on the Tudors Dynasty and Beyond podcast. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rebecca Larson, and it's Thursday, so that means it's time for Dr. Emma and me. Welcome back, Emma.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay. Before we get started today, I just want to tell everybody I thank you so much for all of the kind messages after I lost my dad last week. Obviously, it hasn't been very easy. Dr. Emma has been by my side through it all. And just thank you very much for all of the condolences and nice messages everybody sent. And it's time to get back to work.
We're sending you all the love, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you. So today we're back to Parallel Lives.
Yes.
And today we have 2 subjects who I feel like when I looked at them initially, I was like, where on earth are we going to find parallels between these 2 women? So
we have a saying in Spanish, mujer de poca fe. You're a woman with very little faith.
Yes. That's fair. After what I just said, that's fair.
Because you should have looked at the names and realized the first parallel is just there.
Are we really going that thin on parallels just on their names?
I mean, Catherine is a great name, People might be looking for names for their children, grandchildren. I'm just saying it's been used over and over. And it kind of, when there's been great people named the same as you before you, especially in this time where a lot of these people, we're talking always about the Renaissance and the early modern period, they base their lives a lot on what they read, and they're reading about these saints, and they identify with the saints that have their same names. And Saint Catherine of Alexandria, we're talking about Catherines today, was one of the most important saints in the early modern period, as well as Saint Catherine of Siena, both humanist saints, both very important saints, very cultivated women from antiquity, Yeah. So from the early times of the church, so it's linked to antiquity. So Catherine has always been a name associated with great queens, right? And so people can kind of start to know who we're talking about, right? I'm gonna bring her up again.
Well, and let's just harken back to the 6 wives of Henry VIII. 3 of them were named Catherine, right? Is that right?
Exactly.
I had to think about that.
And why is that? Also, because when a queen is named a certain way, and she's a good queen, and everybody admires her, and she's influential, people start using that name for their children because they can associate that child to their children, to that child. That's why Catherine Parr was named Catherine, right, after Katherine of Aragon. Maud Parr, Catherine Parr's mother, was one of the closest ladies to Catherine of Aragon, Queen Catherine of Aragon. So that's why Catherine Parr was named Catherine. Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that people are going to start naming their children Rebecca and Emma?
Emma's a very, very popular name, both in the United States and in Spain. I think Rebecca is more popular in Spain than it is here. I haven't met many Rebeccas in the States.
Yeah,
you're the only one.
Really? Well, it was a big name in the 70s and the 80s, and then I think
it was a big name in the 80s in Spain too. Yes. So there's a lot of and Emma is just I don't know if it's the Dr. Emma effect or something. No, it's
I think
But
Emma's
I
been.
hear it a lot. When I was a kid, I was the only one around me named that. I'm named after the famous novel. That was where my name came from, a little bit. So yeah, it wasn't as popular as it is now. But I get it. It's a great name too. Another very famous medieval queen, Emma.
Yes.
So it is a royal name too.
Oh, names. Okay, so today we are looking at Emma's favorite, Catherine of Aragon, of course.
Hmm.
And the second Catherine that we're looking at, you can say her name different ways, but I call her Catherine de Medici.
Yes, yes, and that's the name we know her for. I looked up her given name. If you want me to try and pronounce that, my Italian, I can fake. I can fake Italian.
Oh, all right,
That's
let's hear it. Let's hear it. What's
that's
her
the
name?
thing when and Spanish is your first language, Italian is just it's close, right?
Mhm.
So, her given name was Caterina Maria Romula de Medici, and she was born in Florence. We've all heard of
Mm.
Florence, right?
Yes.
And all the wonderful things that happened in Florence when she was born, actually. She was born in the midst of the explosion of the Renaissance, and the most important artists were working at the time for her father, who was part of the Medici family, very famous family of bankers that became rulers of Florence and also a world power because this Catherine de Medici marries the son of the King of France, Francis the First. There you go, parallel with the previous episode.
That's right.
And Lorenzo, her father, Lorenzo de Medici, is the Duke of Urbino, and the Duke of Urbino is very active in his relations with the Valois, with Francis the First, but also the Duke of Urbino is the one to send, for example, Henry VII, a picture by famous artist Raphael, the Duke of Urbino is someone very active in European politics. So Catherine Medici is from a family of bankers, but definitely a family that's interlinked to royal families from Europe, right? So
Yeah.
she's not royalty, but she's almost royalty.
Well,
She
there's
brings
no
the money.
I feel like there's another parallel between these two women, the powerful families. One's a royal powerful family and one has a lot of money and they come with a lot of
Exactly. They
power.
both have a lot of money. Isabel and Fernando also have a lot of money. But even Isabel and Fernando are taking money from these Medici and other banker families from Italy. What is very much a parallel between Catherine of Aragon, Catherine of Spain, and Catherine de Medici, they both come from places where culture and art has developed a lot because they come from Southern Europe, especially Catherine de Medici, I must say, because she comes from Florence. And if you have never been to Florence, this is your time to start a bucket list and put it in number one, first place. If you like the Renaissance, that's where you have to go. Before you
Yeah.
go anywhere else, you have to go to Florence. And this place will not disappoint you, I promise you. If this place disappoints you, you can come and personally talk to me and we'll talk it over because you're wrong. This is an amazing place that will change your perspective of what history of Western culture and art was like. There's so many amazing places. She was born there. Her mother had ties to the French, and that's why she ends up marrying the son of the King of France. Her mother is Madeleine de la Tour de Auvergne, Countess of Boulogne. So,
Okay.
a countess married to a very powerful banker. So their only daughter ends up being married to one of the sons of
Francis the
Francis the First, one of
First.
the sons that he gave to Charles V, so he could get away from Madrid.
It's just
Which one do you want?
could you imagine getting married into that family knowing that?
Well, I looked into this too, and as much as we said that Francis treated very poorly Eleanor of Austria, the niece of Catherine of Aragon, who he married to make a peace with Charles V, in the case of Catherine de Medici, remember we said he loved Leonardo da Vinci? Wink,
Mm.
wink, second Ninja Turtle mentioned.
God.
Um, well, in the case of Catherine de Medici, it seems like Francis had a very good relationship with her and admired a lot how cultivated she was. And because she married his Francis's son before she became queen. She had time before with Francis, and Francis really admired what she did, and she did a lot of artistic patronage while she was in his court. So they got along. They got along, Francis and Catherine of Medici. That's a
Wow.
difference between Catherine of Aragon and Catherine of Medici, because Catherine of Aragon couldn't hate Francis I more.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up again about how Francis didn't like Catherine, but he liked this other Catherine.
Exactly. And the way a man like Francis would let you know he doesn't like you is tell everyone you're ugly, old, and
Yeah.
deformed. Because that's a lovely way to talk about a woman, right? So I mean, I'm being sarcastic, obviously. Um, yeah, then that was the way to disqualify someone too. Francis is really saying there is that she's no longer in an age where she's going to bear a son,
Hmm.
and that's a problem for Henry. So it's Francis getting under Henry VIII's skin, really, by saying that his wife is old, deformed, and from the rival family. That so, and then he falls for the trap. He loses in Pavia. He
Yeah.
just couldn't hate the Trastámaras and the Habsburgs enough, Francis.
Well, exactly. Like, well, he didn't necessarily love the Italians either, did he?
Well, in the case of those who lent him money, he loved them very much. And in the case of those like the Medici, who think about the fact that if your son is marrying someone that has a lot of money, that's always a good thing when you're the king of France and you need people to lend you money to fight wars in Italy, precisely against Charles V, who has even more money than you because he has German bankers, the Fuga and others, giving him some money. They're all, for these kings, they're all mighty and powerful and renaissancey, but they're always begging for money to these bankers. So these bankers, like the Medici, really become, very influential. They are the ones that are really putting the money in the spots that then, the wars were being shaped by these money lenders from
Yeah.
Italy and from Germany and other places. So it's definitely the birth of the capitalist system there too, where the power and the money come together, and that's what happens in the case of Catherine de Medici. She's from not a noble family, but then she becomes one of the most influential figures in 16th century France as a queen consort, but then mostly as a regent of her
Yeah.
sons. Who three of her sons become king of France. That's a big difference with Catherine of Aragon, who didn't have any surviving sons other than little Prince
Yeah.
Henry that was born in 1511. But she raised a daughter. Very different situation to Catherine de Medici, but very difficult because her sons. She was the one who had the character, the drive to rule, all those things. But she was the queen mother. She wasn't obviously the king of France. And we have to remember that in France there's a Salic law. So she
Yeah.
had to rule in the shadows. But everybody knew. I love those kind of characters though, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of the other things I was just thinking about too that are some parallels, and this one might be like a thinly veiled parallel, but the full-time mistress type parallel, Henry VIII had Bessie Blount, right? And we know
Mm-hmm.
how Catherine of Aragon reacted to Bessie, which was kind
Mm-hmm.
of in a very stoic way, might be the best way to say it. And I
I like
think
that term you used.
and I think Catherine de Medici was the same, unless I'm mistaken, when it came to Diane
Diane
being,
de Poitiers.
yes, thank you for saying her name.
Yeah, I think Francis was a bit more obvious in his allusions to the fact that he had her painted naked, and
Oh yeah,
he
Henry,
would have
Henry, not Francis.
no. And in the case of Diane of Poitiers,
Yeah, she was
um,
Henry's lover.
Henry VIII.
No, Henry the Second.
Oh yes, Henry the. Sorry,
Yeah,
yes, so, wrong Henry. I'm always thinking of
I
Henry VIII.
know.
Sorry. Yes,
No,
Henry
that's
II
okay.
and Diane de Poitiers and Francis. Yeah. No, you were talking about Henry VIII first. That's why I got all confused.
Yes, yes.
In the case of Bessie Blount, and the difference with Diane de Poitiers and the French court in general is the fact that, and you were talking about this in the previous episode, these French monarchs are showcasing these mistresses a lot more, like Diana de Poitiers appears even in pictures naked, like that were exhibited, and she was favored by the king in front of everyone. I think what is funny in the Tudor court is these women, like Bessie Bund, are presented usually as pious women from the court, because when they're painted by someone like Holbein, they're all very modest looking. So even though the court, Henry's doing whatever he wants, and he has these lovers, and Bessie Blunt has his son by the king. Catherine is in control of the image still by the time Holbein arrives, and she wants to present a court that is pious, not a court where the mistress of the king is in a picture naked in the palace.
Right.
No, thank you.
Could you imagine? We
have tapestries about the sins and the conquest of Tunisia later on, but it's or heroic topics about war and Hercules, but more references to a glorious past that Catherine wanted to attach herself and Henry than to, I have this mistress now, look at her body.
Yeah.
Francis and Henry II. Yes. But Catherine de Medici, I think, was just, by the time she became queen, this was just such a norm, especially in the French court. What are you going to do? Fight it and be the king's enemy? No.
Hey, it's Paris. I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
No,
you're not going to be happy either.
I can't imagine, though. Could you imagine?
I think one of the things that really shapes, and this is a parallel between both women, Catherine's mom and dad die when she's born. So that's different to Katherine of Aragon. But she spends time in a convent when she's very young. And she's shaped by the women in the convent. And this is something Sheila Folliot, who's a great art historian that studied the artistic patronage of Catherine of Medici, says this is a very influential time for her. So her education was very good, linked to women that were very pious. In that sense, she has a parallel with Katherine of Aragon, who's educated in the court of Isabel of Castile, that is almost like a convent in many ways and respects, right? So that, but linked to humanism. So your modesty and your knowledge and your behavior is going to be what shows that you are a pious woman in front of everyone. So even if your husband does what every king does, it's your response to that, what is going to grant you, your queenly status, or like your the fact that you are a great queen consort. You can endure that and yet think of the dynasty, give him sons, try to give him sons, obviously. So in the case of Catherine de Medici, even though he has that mistress, she has lots of children with him. So by the time he dies, she has many sons. So she's like, now is my time to rule, baby.
And it took her some time to have her first child. So there's some similarities there between her and Katherine of Aragon with having issue
and
producing.
We always have to think that these are people who most likely do not engage in premarital sex, unless, you're from certain families that want to advance in court.
Oh my God.
I'm not going to say who.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not. But in the case of the royal families, women have to be very careful. There's many warnings by Catherine of Aragon sent to Mary. You must be chaste, or everything we're fighting for just comes down, and you can't. You will not be legitimate in the sense that you have broken that legitimacy before marriage, and you are destined to marry a king, an emperor, whatever. You can't do that, right? So I think in that sense, both women are very similar. And once you do have children, though, you have a different power, especially if you have sons and the king dies. And in that sense, Catherine de Medici has a parallel with another Catherine, Catherine of Lancaster. Remember what we told
Yeah.
about? She was regent in Castile for John II when Henry III of Castile died. Well, Catherine de Medici is a bit similar, but her sons keep dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Well, yes, it's unfortunate, but it's very common. So she is rooting with her sons in the shadows, and she's also at the same time doing a very big campaign, propaganda campaign to kind of like say, oh, the Valois, we're so cool. Well, you keep dying, just like the Trastámaras in the last decade of the 15th century. Just these dynasties are just sometimes, it's you have many children, but there's some issue, and the Valois were engaging with, marriages that were very close, tight knit. So, I mean, all these problems that we've talked about before, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of another parallel, but I feel like I've reached the extent of my parallels.
Well,
I
I
didn't even
think
think there were any.
the biggest parallel is the complete transformation of the Tudor court and the French court with the patronage of these women. In
Hmm.
the case of Catherine, and very similar, they both bring people that give a face to the court. Their patronage of artists from Flanders, both of them. So quality artists. We've talked about the quality in art with, and I recommend everyone to read Alejandra Vergara Sharp's book on that. And this is crucial. They both engage in the patronage of artists that are starting to develop court portraiture. So Catherine de Medici in case of the Clouets, and the Clouets are artists that do wonderful portraits and
Mhm.
lots of sketches of the court of Henry II and of Catherine Medici, her children, but also in her manuscripts, like her Book of Hours in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in Paris. So, I mean, she's engaging in putting a face to the court of the Valois, the same way Katherine of Aragon, and I can't emphasize this enough, brings Holbein to England, and Holbein is the one to put a face to the Tudor court because he leaves behind many sketches that were in a book. That when I've done my research, and I've done tons of research on this. This is very likely these sketches belong to Catherine's daughter, Mary Tudor, at one point.
Oh,
She was in charge of them, and also the Holbein's jewelry designs that are in the British Museum. So it's the women. This development of court portraiture is tied to Catherine of Aragon in England and Catherine de Medici in Valois. The introduction of Renaissance portraiture, like, as we kind of know it, and then we have, probably the best example to kind of see how this develops a bit later is Antonis More and Mary Tudor in that famous portrait of Mary holding a rose in the Prado Museum. So this is the beginning of that kind of development of the portraiture in the northern region of Europe that we love, right?
yeah.
These artists from the north. Yeah.
I love, and I'm sorry if I slaughter his name, but I love Francois Clouet, however you
Yes.
say it. His sketches, the Mary Queen of Scots sketches.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, they are. I would say if I put those two artists next to each other, Holbein and Francois, I would just. I don't know how I would choose who is better.
And some of the portraits by one have been attributed to the other. And there's some confusion sometimes in the attributions because they are in a similar style and
Mhm.
they're just so good, right? I don't know who I would choose either. I don't know. I've been looking a lot of Clouets
Yeah.
lately because, as you know, I'm going to the Yale Center for British Art soon, and they have a
Yes.
miniature by Clouet that I am studying.
Mm.
Very amazing portrait of an unknown lady. Let's see if we can put her a name. And it was attributed to Holbein before, so it's we're still finding out stuff about these amazing artists. There's in the Musée Condé in Chantilly. There's one of the books of by Clouet, uh, and there's reproductions of this. For example, if you go to the Nationale in Paris, and there's so many sketches, so many unidentified sitters too, especially the women. Like in the case of Holbein, I think we're going to see in the coming years a lot more. I am work on identifying these pictures that are so
Yeah.
amazing. I mean,
Do you
right?
think my impression of Clouet's sketches in particular is that they are very, I don't know, like the word that comes to mind is romantic. There's something romanticized about the sitter, isn't there?
I agree. I think, yes, I agree. I think a sketch is always a bit more gentle than
Yeah.
a picture with color. But I agree that maybe in the case of Clouet, they're slightly more idealized than in the case of Holbein.
Okay.
With, yes, a little bit of, I want to say even that I've been studying this a lot of feminine touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like the some of the miniatures that are now believed to be by could be by Susanna Horenboot and not other artists. For example, one that comes to mind that Sylvia Soberton has proposed could be by Susanna is the one of Anna of Cleves in the Victoria Albert Museum.
Mm.
And that does have that kind of same romantic air, I think, that you're talking about. I think sometimes also these artists that are in the cusp between Flanders, but also they go to England, but also they work for the French sometimes, can depending on the commission, can bend a little bit how they and these pictures that you're talking about form part of a group. So that's obviously that's done usually in the same style because these were aimed to be commissions for portrait galleries. That's also a very interesting topic that I love to study about. And I've
Uh,
studied Henry VIII's portrait gallery. It's very interesting to see who he has. Some of those pictures have survived. Where things displayed next to who. Fernando of Aragon is next to, for example, James IV of Scotland. Why? Because he was negotiating to marry his daughter Maria with him. Yeah.
wow.
So yeah, it's very interesting. The whole portraiture thing, as you know, I'm obsessed.
Yeah. It
It's
just
probably
goes.
my biggest hyperfixation. I don't think it's going to leave me anytime soon. So,
Oh, that's good. We're glad for
and
that.
Chloe is definitely a discovery, isn't he? He's just
Oh my
wonderful.
gosh. He is really one of my favorite, but he's one I forget about until I see his because Holbein is just in the back of our head all the time. Holbein, Holbein, Holbein. And then you see a Clouet and you're like, oh, right. I forgot about him. He is amazing too.
There is an incredible Chloe in Paris that is a version of the Antonismo's portrait of Mary Tudor.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, now I want to see that one.
Maybe we put it in the show notes.
Maybe we should.
Yeah. Maybe we could use it as maybe we could just pop it in the image and
Yeah.
I'm going to start making Rebecca work again a little bit in the images, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
Rebecca.
I just love when we talk about art and when you talk about your research into art because I'm always wanting to look at history as a whole, right? Because my focus at the beginning was always relationships and people. And the
Hmm.
longer I study history, the longer or the more I realize that you have to look at a broader spectrum of things, like whose painting was hanging next to whoever, like those are interesting things to me now because it does say so much, but in a very subtle way. It's not screaming at you, oh, we're friendly with this person. It's just like, hey, we're here. We're not going to say it out loud necessarily, but here it is.
Exactly. And I think in the case of portraiture, you can, this is a crucial time. and we've talked about this many times, it starts to be lots of references to portraits being painted, miniatures being sent. So personal image becomes important. And what do we have? And we've talked about this before. We have a deep emotional connection with the Tudors because we can see their faces in our brains.
Yeah.
See, I'm all about the faces. In that sense, I still encourage people to go if they have time and they're in London to see Faces for Eternity, that exhibition I created in another format that portraits are made of, in portrait medals and coins, and we still have those today.
Yeah.
So it's very important to realize that these, in the case of the women that we're talking about, these are crucial women to create a long-lasting image of the Renaissance, because these portraits, I want to say it again and emphasize it again, it's the Catherine of Medicis, it's the Katherine of Aragons, it's the Mary Tudors, the one in charge, usually largely, of the image of these dynasties, especially in portraiture, because these portraits are largely used for marriage negotiations. The women are very implicated in these marriage negotiations. Claude of France sends many pictures to Catherine of Aragon, many of the Dauphin when Mary's betrothed to the Dauphin. But then Margaret of Austria sends Susanna Horenboot and the paints miniatures of Charles V and Mary Tudor wearing the little jewel that says,
yeah, the little.
What does it say on it?
What does it say? Oh, crud.
The Emperor.
I was just going to say, you're testing my brain today. It's
Remember, that's in the
Yes.
National Portrait Gallery.
Yeah.
All these, what I'm saying with this is all of this is connected. And this is why we like the Tudors more than we like, I'm sorry to say, and for all those who study the Plantagenets, and all those previous ones, we like them for other reasons. I know other reasons. For example, we love the medieval period because of the great architecture they left us, right?
Yeah.
For example. But we love the Renaissance because largely the paintings and the portraits and the artworks, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think we need to thank people more like Catherine de' Medici and Catherine of Aragon instead of the Henry VIII and the Francis I.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that kind of clear now that that's how I roll with this? That's what I'm trying to research about.
In case you didn't know before, now you know.
In case you didn't know, I'm here to say the dudes did a great job. The women, however, were largely in charge of a lot of things that we think are pretty cool. Catherine de' Medici's portraits are super mega cool because she was a great patron of the arts. But imagine this, she grew up in Florence, probably knew about that fight.
Oh.
Michelangelo, third Ninja Turtle there.
Oh my God.
And Torrigiano, who went to work for Catherine of Aragon and Henry VIII had. And listen to this. Catherine de' Medici, where she lived in the Villa Medici, well, she obviously was linked to that. There was even a sculpture by Donatello. Donatello made stuff for that. So, I mean, she knew all the Ninja Turtles.
I knew you were going to say that. She knew the Ninja Turtles.
All of them. She grew up with, knowing about their art, seeing their art in situ. Catherine of Aragon learned about the Renaissance in Castile with paintings that were arriving, artists that were arriving from other places. But Catherine de' Medici was in Florence, where the David by Michelangelo was, that Raphael copied and things like that. So this is the kind of education that she gets. And then she goes to Francis, who's obsessed with said Leonardo da Vinci. And he's like, I love you because you're Italian. And that's the most refined culture there is. Even more refined than the court of Isabel and Fernando in the sense of the art, right? Because that's where the Renaissance, which is what everybody ends up obsessed with. Francis I, Henry VIII, all of them end up seduced by this new way of thinking about art, but not art, life, approach to everything. It's a new way to understand knowledge. Approach to knowledge, to beauty, to a new way to understand your relationship with your environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I at the beginning, before we hit record, I told Dr. Emma this was going to be a slightly shorter episode than usual. So I think what I want you to end with today, is there any lasting thoughts or any final thoughts you want to leave with people about these Catherines?
There sometimes historical women have bad rep.
Mm.
They
Sometimes.
sometimes, and both of these have bad rep.
Yeah.
No, we've talked about someone like Eleanor of Aquitaine that I think mostly has good rep. Let's say you're right. The majority of women in power have bad rep, right?
Yeah.
Historical women,
Yeah.
especially in the Renaissance. Many reasons, many good reasons for it, right? We've talked
Mhm.
about it. Um, but also, it's time to give them their place in history for the contributions to art and culture, which is something that is had a very long lasting impact in our culture in the time of that we're living in the 16th century. The culture and art from that era has a long lasting effect on us, and we still love it. And we have to vindicate that there was not just the men, it was the women like Catherine de Medici and Catherine of Aragon who were made this possible by moving from one place to another and developing these new ideas in where they arrived. So thanks to them, we have amazing artworks in all around Europe and now the US with big museums. So I think that's what I want to leave with. Vindicate their place in art history and history in general.
I love it. I love it. You know what? I'm glad that you chose these two women for this week. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't think there were any parallels, but you proved me wrong.
Well, thank you so much for giving me freedom and never judging me for my choices, even though you should judge me for many of my choices. But you don't, because you're a good friend and I appreciate you. And thank you again for doing this amazing show with me. And I'm here for you. So, and I can't wait for next week. I've got an even crazier idea for next week.
Oh, goodness. I can't wait to hear more. Well, you guys are going to have to wait for next week, I guess, to find out what that topic is going to be. And until then, I guess we will see you for the next episode.
Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to Tudors, Dynasty, and Beyond. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss a new release. And if you loved it, leave a quick review. It helps more history lovers find the show. Want to support the podcast and get bonus content? Head to patreon.com/tutorsdynasty. You can also find the link in the show notes of this episode. Join the conversation with Rebecca on social media at Tutors Dynasty. Until next time.